Hi, I am Jack Brewer with Expanding Frontiers Research, and welcome to the Politics of UFO Disclosure. During this discussion, we will consider the elected officials, the legislation, the self-described whistleblowers, and other aspects of the current UFO steeplechase. This is presented as part of our 4-year anniversary celebration for Expanding Frontiers Research. If you find this and other aspects of our programming beneficial, please consider joining our financial supporters, and you'll find relevant links to do that in the YouTube show description. Thank you for your consideration, and thanks for tuning in. I'm joined today by Executive Director of Expanding Frontiers Research, Erica Lukes. Thanks for being here, Erica.
Thank you so much, and happy anniversary, Jack. I cannot believe 4 years has gone by so quickly, and I am very proud not only of Expanding Frontiers research, but also of the work that you have done and my partnership with you. It has really allowed me to grow as a person, as a researcher, and I love it. So thank you for being a part of this wonderful organization. And thanks to both of you, Alison and Tanner, and your wonderful support and input. We just, this is a group effort, and we are really lucky to have people like both of you in our lives.
Indeed, we are. Well stated. Also here today is Alison Godfrey Brandel. Thanks for joining us, Alison.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tanner Boyle is with us. Thanks for being here, Tanner.
Yeah, of course. Congrats on the 4 years, both of you.
Thank you.
Have to say I've enjoyed every moment of it. You two are some of the best the field has to offer right now. Not that it's that challenging to be the best in this field, you know.
Good one.
You rise above anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. And be sure and check out Tanner's work at the popular Getting Spooked blog, where he posts interesting discussions and written content as well. So, the politics of UFO disclosure. Let's first take a look at some of the elected officials that are involved. That would include Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican from Florida. She serves on the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, also known as Oversight and Government Reform. She is the chair of the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. She has championed self-described UFO whistleblowers, prioritized UAP transparency, and promoted questionable interpretations of CIA Project MKUltra and alleged continuing covert activities by the CIA. Representative Tim Burchett, Republican Tennessee, is a longtime advocate for releasing UAP information. He champions dubious UFO whistleblowers and, according to former Congressman Denver Riggleman, theorizes Bigfoot is a UFO occupant. Among other committees, Representative Burchett serves on oversight and government reform. Also among the elected officials championing disclosure is Representative Eric Burleson, Republican, Missouri. He participates in multiple UAP hearings, and he sent formal requests to contractors in the pursuit of UAP-related records. He is a member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform and holds leadership roles in its subcommittees. Now, guys, we've seen the hearings, we've seen the whistleblowers. These are some of the people that are leading the charge. Any comments on these elected officials and their activities? Allison.
I would like to point out that Anna Paulina Luna, according to Dave Troy's reporting in his America 2.0 series, that Luna is has close associations with Russia. She's served as a surrogate for Kremlin priorities and hosted 4 sanctioned Russian State Duma deputies at the Capitol. In February of 2026, the Robert Lansing Institute publicly stated that the probability that Anna Paulina Luna is being used by Russian intelligence as part of an influence operation must be assessed as high. Renewing questions about whether UAP disclosure is also part of a long-running Russian information warfare effort. Going back, you can see that the Russians have long used UFOs to sow disinformation. So
yes, it's kind of an ongoing topic with Wayward Sons book group, was showing doubt in authority and undermining authority. And Erica, you were nodding as she talked about Representative Luna. Would you like to comment on any of that?
I'm just glad that Allison just summed that up so nicely, because that's something that I've been really watching, I think, for a long time. Just, you always want to look at people and their associations, and they're not shy about these associations. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, people might have kept things like that under the lid a little bit, but this is very out in the open. And, we not only have the Russian aspect, but also China and other foreign adversaries utilize the UFO topic historically and current time to sow distrust and to also hide covert, operations. So it's an interesting topic, and a topic that I think the general public needs to become more aware of very quickly for all of our sake.
Yeah, it's not like Representative Luna would deny the affiliations. Like we're not accusing her of something that's not overt. We're just like questioning that judgment. And as Allison pointed out, Dave Troy questions the intentions behind it as well. But at a minimal, it could be considered a question in judgment. Yes. How about you, Tanner? Any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could say I'm sort of a longtime proponent of trying to clean our own house before cleaning other people's houses. And I think there is the opportunity for foreign influence in these topics, but I think a hell of a lot of it is kind of homegrown. UFOs are as American as baseball and apple pie in a lot of ways. And I think, yeah, I don't know, like, I think, I assume you're going to get into it. It has become kind of a bipartisan thing where these sorts of affiliations aren't necessarily like across the board. Like certainly like certain individuals could be assets of foreign influence operations, but it's sort of become like, I think if like, Chuck Schumer is very intensely into the flying saucer topic, which I don't know, like I always think like, do any of these people's constituents actually, I mean, I'm sure some do, but do the vast majority actually give a hoot about UFOs?
I think that's a valid point. My personal opinion would include that elected officials, it's my understanding, typically do what consultants indicate to them they need to do. And I don't think a lot of them have a real good finger on the pulse of their constituents. And I do tend to think, like you're getting at, Tanner, that if an elected official picks up the UFO topic and runs with it, it's either because they've been alerted that it will get votes, or they've been alerted that someone in their party would want them on board with it, or like there's some political meaning to it. I would frankly think that concern about UFO truth would rank near the bottom if it's present at all. You know,
I'm wondering if some of that isn't because they know that all for sure the Republicans are going to be all over it, and so maybe they feel the need to at least kind of know what's going on.
yeah. Let's look at that a little bit here. Legislation related to UAP transparency has been proposed by a bipartisan group of elected officials, including Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat, New York, Senator Mike Rounds, Republican, South Dakota, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat, New York, and now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Republican, Florida, Burchett, Burleson, and others. Now, while that's the case, my interpretation is that some of the people, such as Schumer, seem to just want to be attached with a transparency movement. Like he wants credit for what's good and wants to distance himself from what doesn't look so good, of course. But I've also felt like even though it's considered bipartisan and reported that way, would you guys not agree that the extremist aspects of it often seem to come from the more right-wing side of the UFO disclosure movement? Or is that
Absolutely
just the bubble I'm in?
No, and I think there's good reason for it, because they want a smaller government. They don't want people to trust the government, and there's lots going on right now, namely the Epstein files that they want to distract from. So they want to stoke distrust, but also then possibly seem like they're trustworthy, that they're the ones trying to get the truth out, and the horseshoe effect, it attracts both sides of the aisle. So they could be trying to get more constituents on board with their side of the aisle or with the Trump administration, because who doesn't want transparency?
Yeah.
And also who's making campaign donations
Right.
to each of
Right.
these, individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. The money always factors. If any of you have seen, there's a sports show called Around the Horn where different sports writers debate sports issues, and the host of the show has a little controller in his hand that he gives points, and it goes ding, ding, ding when you make a good point. And Alison, when you said Epstein files, I thought of that show and I thought I'd go ding, 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 ding. Yeah. All of these people that are on a more transparency from government task force seem to be disproportionately fixated on a number of issues, while the Epstein files are like the pink elephant that's crowded everything else out of the room. Yeah. Other thoughts on the bipartisanship or related points?
Yeah, so in Allison's thing, she kind of mentioned the Overton window, and I'm not trying to bring that in too early, but something Jack said about it drawing, it sort of reminded me of sort of how the illegal immigration subject kind of became this, it had this very particular framing where in the lead up to the 2020 election, they tried to make the Dems look soft on immigration, even though that was at a pretty low point in like what their voters actually cared about, but it still kind of looked bad to the consultants. And it is just kind of shifting everything rightward. It's moving the goalposts. And I think the UFO subject has kind of been that too, because it is inherently a right-wing military industrial complex. Like it's part and parcel of that aspect of our society. And I think Democrats probably don't want to look like they don't support the military or military businesses or, contracting. And yeah, and I think it more recently it served as a pretty excellent distraction from, I don't know how, I say excellent, I don't know how well it's actually distracting from the war in Iran. There's been two pretty sketchy murdering foreign leaders, oh no, they didn't kill Maduro. He's sitting in New York and we haven't heard about him since then, which is kind of bizarre in its own. And I don't know. I think the numbers kind of show that these sorts of actions are unpopular. Usually the American public would rather not go to war or do regime change if they, it does. Again, it kind of comes down to just sort of, military business. Certainly oil, certainly other things. And see, now I'm rambling. Sorry, Jack.
You're right, though, and it has for a long time, since the outset of the modern UFO phenomenon. It has been inseparable from the military intelligence community. And their inherent racism to the mid-20th century and the intelligence agencies and their international recruits. And it's difficult to surgically remove that from looking at a current evaluation of how come the Republicans are the most wild-eyed, nostril flaring about UFOs, at least for me. Now, that stated, now's as good a time as any to clarify Expanding Frontiers Research is not a political lobbyist. It has no stance on politics. The topic of politics and UFO disclosure becomes relevant to a research organization because of the aspects of it that include misinformation and the reliability of information that is being disclosed, media literacy, and related topics. Now, some of the legislation that has been presented by these bipartisan elected officials includes the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, and its annual provisions, the UAP Disclosure Act, and the UAP Transparency Act. Lawmakers use these defense and seeming transparency bills to mandate reporting, create records collections, and protect supposed government whistleblowers. And we could do a whole episode on this if we were so inclined, that there are some things that should be clarified that the media just keeps getting wrong. about these circumstances. One is that it keeps saying that the Department of War is releasing records and that Trump called for the release of records. And this has been in ongoing legislation dating back to the Biden administration to have the National Archives collect UFO related documents from the main intelligence agencies or those that hold them and are willing to turn them in. And then NARA was to review and either reprocess those records or process them under the FOIA for what could be released. So it's completely out of context on almost a weekly basis that there's something Trump or Hegseth or someone is doing to get you and me and God and country more UAP transparency. Any comments?
Thank God for that. You know, no, the releases have been, would you say, what I would say, very boring, even by the standards of like, you know, like everybody here's kind of somebody who would actually read those documents. I don't think the broader public is necessarily that, but even I'm like, my eyes are glazing over.
Isn't a lot of what's released stuff that's already known? That there's not really the latest disclosures are just kind of repetitive of what's been released before. So there's nothing shocking or surprising in there.
I think both of those are accurate perspectives. I think it could also be said that there are select historians and researchers that appreciate that they're getting some better copies, or that maybe they're getting some dates or maybe a name or two here or there, some details that are helping them better piece together some very complex chains of events from, yes, documents that were already released in other form. So while what I just described deserves to be said, I think your overall point is still vastly accurate, that the public is largely looking for the alien, and that's just not there. Any thoughts on that, Erica?
Well, it's not for their lack of certain people trying to make something there. You know,
This is true.
You could look on social media every day and it's like, oh my God, oh, Lord, look what they released. And,
Some will
yeah,
tell you there is an alien in those files. That's right.
yes, indeed. Yeah. So it's interesting to watch the releases and, you know, the public reaction. But I think your point was very, you know, spot on. And thanks for bringing that up, Jack, about Biden and about the, you know, what the prior administration was trying to do as well.
I have a question and would wonder what you all think. If there's more documents released, if there was a bombshell in that, how much can we believe in the authenticity of the documents or the information disclosed in the documents? Because I feel like the waters have been really muddied, especially since this disclosure movement has really been going on since World War II, basically, with NICAP.
I'm sort of imagining a re-release of you know, like the MJ12 documents, except it's a clean copy, so it doesn't have the like big fake scrawled on the front of it. And people are like, oh my God, it's actually real this time.
Please not again.
Erica, I wanted to ask you actually, did you see George Knapp and Robert Bigelow had a discussion?
I certainly did. That was a very, very interesting discussion. What do you think about it? Did you see it?
I did. Well, supposedly Bigelow had Trump's ear recently.
Well, it doesn't sound like Trump was listening too closely. Sounds like he got a little distracted.
Yeah, which does sound about accurate, but I don't know. The social media right now is just it's a mess with the UFO stuff. Like it seems like the big disclosure has already happened in some regards, apparently, supposedly. Uh, but now the big thing is like we gotta have Trump give a speech where he says that it's maybe possible that aliens are real. And I think it's sort of implied that that's what Bigelow was trying to push for. He was trying to say
Yes.
like, President Trump, you got to say that there's like maybe a reality to this situation, which I
And I
don't know,
liked
like
like the kind of, you only gave him like a couple lines to say, stand at the doorway of the plane and then tell the world aliens are real. And it's just,
right,
you wait till you see it, Allison and Jack. It is a fascinating interview on so many fronts. But
yeah.
Good point, Saul. And Allison, your question about what if a document substantiates something, that's the whole shooting match of best research practices. That whether it's the CIA or Bob Bigelow or the Pope, it has to be evidence available for public review. Right, right.
Well, and they're not doing much, let's say, interpretative work regarding what's being released.
Little to none. Yeah.
Most of them are just saying, have fun.
And we want the public to form its own beliefs. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not to say I find it, I don't think the files being released are particularly dangerous, but there's certainly files within ufology that could be dangerous as far as like, I mean, I talked about MJ12, but like, do we have the possibility of something like that happening again? You bet your bottom dollar we have that on steroids in our future, probably.
especially
Yeah.
with, Eric Davis and his crew, that are with them briefing all of the people in politics, so all those things are going to come back around, unfortunately. So it's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got a year out of they being media outlets and what some have referred to as disclosure entrepreneurs, got a year out of theoretical papers that were submitted to the Defense Intelligence Agency that, if taken out of context, will at first glance seem to be more relevant than they are. Like, look, this is in a DIA file. And for decades, we've had records. Look, this is in an FBI file. They're writing a report that says a disc was recovered in such and such state at such and such time. And FBI reports are infamous for, like the old Joe Friday, just the facts, ma'am. They just write up what the person being interviewed told them and give it to the boss. Here's
Right.
what
Yeah,
they said happened. There you go, Mr. Hoover. Sort of, quote them all, let J. Edgar sort it out. Yeah. And like with those theoretical papers from Bass and NIDS to the DIA, I mean, that's basically just Kit Green and Eric Davis's spitballing fantasies that, are ended up in a DIA file somewhere.
Are those the ones with like the portals? Like the dinosaur, you look in a portal and there's a dinosaur on the other side kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Was that a part of the dirt, the dirt
I
that they
don't know,
released?
but
I don't.
the general gist of it, yeah, that they uh argued that they could back engineer propulsion systems and things like that when they can't. In reality, you can't get it past peer review that you can establish there's anything to back engineer.
Well, they were also, though, I mean, obviously we all know this, but just to reiterate, they were also, researching or, talking about weapons research. So I think that's important to note, which, as we talk about a lot, Jack, just recently has come
Yes,
up a lot with the Skinwalker Ranch. So
yes, it does perpetually come up that it's Skinwalker Ranch is like the ultimate Scooby-Doo story, that there's some hoax to either keep scared people away so they don't come snooping around to find out what's going on, and or to inflate the value of the property. Yeah, you know.
Those are both Scooby-Doo villain reasonings. It's basically those two.
That's right.
Well,
The
and
And you
Scooby-Doo
speak of
produced a whole
Scooby-Doo.
generation.
oh,
oh,
I got the
yes.
mystery machine on my shirt right now.
there you
That's
go.
baby.
Well, and they're
outstanding.
also making a ton of money on top of all that, right? The entertainment industry surrounding it.
Right.
Either way,
Either,
if they're trying to do either of those things.
Well, yes, yes. Before we get too far from the legislation and the misinterpretations about it all, I'd like to bring up another aspect of that when that first came out, some of the people that I exchange emails with were hoping that they would look into the kinds of things we've studied in Wayward Sons book group, and maybe some things will come out about deception operations and things like that. And I was not particularly eager about that or optimistic because of a few reasons. And one being, even well meaning analysts need to know what they're looking at to be able to understand. They have to care what they're doing as compared to just, your first job out of college, you got hired with NARA to sort a mountain of UFO reports that's going to be, a 20-year project or something. And another thing is what history tells us about that. I got a memo that Tom Dooley wrote for the NSA in 1978, and he was a member of the MUFON board of directors and an NSA assignee. And what was kind of a number of things are interesting about it, but in the context of this discussion, that memo was originally withheld from a FOIA request and a lawsuit that wanted NSA UFO records. And it was withheld under the reasoning that it's not about a flying object. It's about an NSA assignee at a UFO conference. And here's another interesting aspect of it. I don't think that the UFO community particularly objected to that. That like, if it's not about something flying in the sky, they're not interested. And so, see, you not only need the analysts on board to go, this memo is arguably as relevant or more than every report of a blurry light on the horizon that we've given you, but you need the community itself and the public to care. And as we've been discussing, they are conditioned to not understand the relevance of the FBI and the CIA and the NSA, and if at all think that it's just a cover up of alien spacecraft.
You know, and I want to just throw in there, Jack, that to me, like you're saying that, and to me, that is why what we have with the archive here is so important, because we aren't just looking for a UFO sighting to put out there to wave in front of the public to say this is real. What we're concerned about is preserving all of it and making sure that that is available so people can understand where a quote unquote researcher investigator was coming from, where you know, how he might have been biased in a certain way, or he or she, or things like that, or the correspondence between people in organizations. These things are the real key pieces. And I often am quite stunned that a lot of people that are UFO historians or archivists simply don't care about the correspondence. And it is very concerning to me that a lot of that will be kind of hidden from the public in an attempt to make the UFO subject look real. So I just needed to throw that in there.
I agree with that completely. And like you, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but I also think it deserves being said that 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 former NSA mentality, the way they wanted to interpret the Freedom of Information Act and the exemptions, and that this request was for UFO related records. This is about a UFO conference and doesn't apply. I think that that is advantageous. Why, you know, I think that there is some intentional obstruction there. And not just with the intelligence agencies, but yeah, I think with the UFO research community and the UFO fans at large would rather that kind of thing be withheld than call certain organizations or researchers or groups into question. I do. And like I say, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but I just don't find that FOIA determination to be completely coincidental or without more thought given to it. And I think it's appreciated to a certain extent by the UFO research community. Yeah.
Jack, what do you see as the way to get beyond that? Because I know you do a lot of FOIA requests. You just go really heavy on the specificity so it doesn't get looped into that kind of exemption.
Yeah, yeah, you do. Sometimes it's hard. It's good to have multiple sets of eyes on what you're doing. Like for this build up we're doing, part of the EFR month-long celebration is at the end of the month we're having a show on the octopus murders. And part of preparing for that was I wanted to just as quickly as possible get whatever the FBI had already released to the Netflix documentary makers and previous researchers. So I asked for all records responsive to Danny Casolaro that have been previously released. And relatively quickly, they did give me those. And they're posted at the EFR Patreon for anyone that would like to access them, by the way. And then I followed up with, and now please do a search for all responsive records that haven't been previously released. So it can become tedious, is my point.
Mhm.
Yes. You could even like just do the same request periodically just to see, is anything surface that wasn't found before, or yeah, it can get tedious and does require specific wording, um, especially if you're looking for communications between different people or memos. And probably the most difficult part of it, Tanner, is from one agency to another, even in federal agencies, especially with state and local agencies, they have different ways they search their records. So, like, it's probably more helpful, or I found it helpful, to start getting the hang of like how the FBI and the National Archives work and how they search things, rather than try to like be a master of all of them, you know,
Mhm.
if that's helpful.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the things we provide at EFR is assistance with composing a FOIA request or wording it if anyone wants help with how to identify where to send it or how to word it or something like that. We're glad to take a look at it. And that is relatively in confidence, which is to say we, don't post about it or anything like that.
Well, not to get rid of the confidence there, but I know my wife Emily has taken advantage of that skill set quite a bit. A lot of interesting receipts from that.
Yes, we have collaborated with Tanner's wife, Emily, and had some very interesting FOIA finds. She is talented at researching and identifying very interesting historic circumstances. Some of it's true crime, some of it's UFOs, stuff like that. And she's kind of gotten the hang of what she needs, the information she needs to give me, and then I'll help her with it. And we still have some open at this point, have done a number of them. Yes. Yeah. So we're happy to do stuff like that. We want to promote and facilitate best research practices and provide the public reliable information through proven research methods like the FOIA. Yes.
Tell Emily hello, by the way. I miss
Will
seeing her.
do.
And I've got to just go off here for a second because I love watching what she puts together. Not only is she a brilliant researcher, but the way she puts things together and does all of her video work is really, it just enthralls me. So please give her my best for sure.
Will do. And
Thanks.
I know she wishes she was more present these days, but unfortunately that skill set in putting together video has led to a preponderance of work to be done.
Good for
So
her. That's
yeah.
great. Well, these different elected officials and their legislation led to the establishment of the AARO, which is the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office within the DoD. And it was to investigate events, including historic UFO reports. Its first director was Sean Kirkpatrick, and he served from 2022 to 2023. And it was controversial. There were arguments. There was a lot of mixed reviews. And now it is John Kozlowski, who was appointed in 2024. And opinions on the AARO continue to get mixed reviews depending on whether you're asking UFO buffs, the scientific community, or others. Any thoughts on the AARO?
I just have to say that I'm sure that that Sean had a I bet that was the longest year of his life. That poor guy went through the ringer, and really was under quite a few attacks, and I thought that was very interesting to watch some of the people in the UFO community take after him because he wasn't exactly promoting, their line of thinking.
Yes, I have had more than one professional journalist say to me, in effect, holy smokes, I've covered some pretty hot topics and nothing gets as bloody as fast as UFOs. Yeah.
What is the? I haven't been following as much with Kozlowski's appointment. What's the down low on that guy? Is he more like UFO friendly,
I
UAP
think that
friendly?
would be my understanding from the little I've gleaned about that. So
Yeah, I'll be sarcastic here. I use UFO community members as a readout system of the news. And while I don't particularly follow AARO itself, like Eric is getting at, I get the idea from UFO interested parties that they're more pleased with the AARO of late than they were under Kirkpatrick, which would lead me to believe they are at least presenting themselves in a more UFO friendly manner. I believe, if I recall correctly from Wayward Sons book group, a recently released AARO report was rather vanilla and stated we just need more information to be able to reach conclusions about certain specific cases. Now, what I think this has to do with historic circumstances is in the 1960s, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, NICAP, a civilian organization, ostensibly, was successful in getting congressional hearings along with the rest of the UFO community, was successful in getting that accomplished. And I have argued that I don't think Donald Kehoe was much of a UFO investigator as he presented himself at times, as much as a talented writer. And he was a very talented public relations man, and he was an effective lobbyist. He made UFO research about contacting elected officials and getting them interested in his special interest, and he was effective at it. The irony is those hearings that didn't really accomplish a lot, like we're seeing now, just elected officials talking to people that make UFO claims, they did result in a committee being formed and sponsored by the Air Force to study the UFO phenomena. And it was known as the Condon Committee. And ironically, that was somewhat the beginning of the end for NICAP, because it did not produce a positive, friendly report on UFOs and made the work of NICAP and Donald Kehoe substantially more difficult, along with the fact that there weren't any spacemen landing. And like in the 1960s, they seemed to think it was reaching a tipping point, and it was relatively new, and they thought that this is something that's recently happened, and these interplanetary spacecraft are here, and the powers that be are not going to be able to keep the lid on it. And in the time it took the Condon report, the Condon Committee to produce their report, nothing had happened, and they were nearing the end of the decade of the 1960s, and the report was kind of the last straw for NICAP. Now I see the parallel there, and an office has been set up, AARO, and Sean Kirkpatrick said, "Give me your best, give me your whistleblowers." And after a year, he reported, "I basically got nothing. And what do you want me to do about it?" Now, that's oversimplifying it, and some arguments could be made about perhaps some things were less transparent than others. But in general, I see some similarities there, that you've got your whistleblower protections, you've got attorneys that are willing to work with these people, you've got public officials that are willing to hear these people out, you've got an office to take these grievances to. Where are they?
Doing podcasts. Going on Sean Ryan.
Pretty much.
Did you come up with, you used this term earlier, did you come up with the term disclosure entrepreneur?
I did not. I
Dave
got
Troy.
from Alison.
The Dave Troy one.
Yeah, who took it from Dave Troy. Yes,
I think
disclosure
that's a good one.
entrepreneurs. Why don't we talk about that a little bit? Disclosure entrepreneurs might include George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, Chris Bledsoe, who Tanner has written about at length. It also involves dubious journalists and commentators such as Ross Coulthart, Eric Weinstein, and a host of others. Others might include the New York Times, the paper of record, who never fact-checked or followed up on the dubious 2017 article that included Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, who could certainly be in the dubious journalist category from my vantage point. Comments on any of that?
There's so many. Go ahead, Tanner. You were going to say something.
Oh, I
something.
wasn't.
Okay.
I was just thinking about Jeremy Corbell's boots. And I really didn't have a comment. That's just why I was smirking.
Yes, they have definitely made quite the careers for themselves, all of them. Very interesting. That whole movement, that Disclosure 2017 movement. And they still obviously still have a lot of steam, it would appear.
One of the most intelligence insulting aspects of it to me is that we repeatedly see Team Knapp and Corbell produce material that by their own description they've been holding and vetting, is why they didn't produce it, which when released into the wild will be conclusively debunked in a matter of days. So with that in mind, it moves me to think, and I'm to believe there's more, that there's like jaw-dropping, conclusive evidence of something otherworldly, but I get flare drops over a military range.
And party balloons. They love the party balloons, don't they?
Yes, yes. party balloons that dubious outlets run with and defend indefinitely. Yes.
And I always love the fact that, and we've talked about this, a lot over the years, but how we've got these leaked government documents or videos, and yet none of them have seen the inside of a jail cell, when that would be very clearly might put an average person, if they were leaking classified documents or footage, in prison. But
yes, it does.
I what got my attention back in like 2017 when this movement of disclosure started again wasn't the New York Times article, because I don't know enough about those players, but for some reason Lou Elizondo really got my attention, and he seemed very credible. And he let, like, some of these disclosure entrepreneurs tend to do that, to lend credibility to it, but he's still going around the country speaking. He and someone else I just saw recently were coming to Minnesota, and I don't know, supposed to be talking about UFOs, I guess, but and they're still just, in my opinion, grifting off of it. Because at this point, what else are they getting out of it? Like, there's not anything more disclosed. So
maybe they're trying to recruit people for certain things. I don't know. I mean,
oh, it could be, though. I think it serves multiple purposes. You're
yeah,
right.
I think it does
You're right.
too.
It does. You're right. That's a good point.
I think Elizondo is currently in kind of like Jack. I use the UFO community as my news feed for reasons that are beyond me. And Elizondo is currently fighting with Ross Coulthart, so they're no longer on the same team. Coulthart is calling him like a disinformation agent, which is it's very funny to call each other that when it's like Coulthart will cover just like anybody off the street, if they say that they're if they saw a UFO one time, he's like, "Oi, mate, come on the show then," like.
Nice accent.
No, it wasn't very good. I was worried I would try to do a Burchett earlier, and I can't do a Burchett. I sound like Hank Hill whenever I try to.
Well, one of the more disturbing aspects of the whole tent to me is when we see academics give this their reputation, when they put their credentials with it. It's bad enough when Luis Elizondo and others with military credentials and intelligence community backgrounds do it, but sometimes we see well-educated scientists and researchers and doctors do this, and among them are Harvard's Avi Loeb, Stanford's Gary Nolan, there's Diana Walsh-Pasulka, even Jacques Vallée and Hal Puthoff from years past are commanding audiences. I will add, however, that I think the actions of Loeb, Nolan, and Walsh-Pasulka might be considered even more concerning, in that of all people, along with intelligence professionals, academics should know the importance of providing evidence available for public review. People that question their judgment or authenticity should not be scolded. They should be viewed as fact checkers. And of all people, academics should know that the public should not accept assertions on faith. And in my opinion, Loeb, Nolan, and Walsh-Pasulka do an extremely poor job of transferring that concept. On an episode of Wayward Sons Book Group, Rachel Nelson aptly pointed out that it's very hard to separate the UFO topic from politics. And she pointed out that she no longer thinks it can really be done in any context. I paraphrase, but that was what I interpreted her to be communicating. I tend to agree with that, especially when people like Gary Nolan set up their podiums on Tucker Carlson. And when Diana Walsh-Pasulka, in an interview with Erica, among others, name dropped Peter Thiel. And then want to argue.
Wait, pause. How long ago was that?
Oh boy, I'm telling you, it was
5 years, maybe.
maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah,
Interesting.
maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, about 5 years.
Very sorry to interrupt. I just had to ask.
That's okay. That's all right. So when they pull it into a political arena and then want to call it bipartisan, and that's another thing Rachel pointed out, was they will like qualify this isn't about politics before they start spewing political ideologies. So how is that playing into the politics of UFOs? That we have a Harvard astronomer, a Stanford pathologist, I believe is his profession, doing right-wing media and talking about aliens, folks. What the hell's going on?
I mean, again, there's so much, there's so many things and directions, you could go with all of this. And I do find it, one thing with the UFO community, especially, right now, and we've all seen this and talked about historically, but the push to look at the good, benevolent space beings being Nordic beings and pushing that just pushing a very harmful ideology. And I think we all know, where you could go from that. And I'm always shocked that people are not smart enough to put two and two together in that regard.
Yeah, and again, we're gonna get into, there's a direct line between that narrative and mid-20th century political ideology. Yes, there is.
Yeah, and I think that time period speaks to a lot too, because it is reminiscent of like, the nascent like evangelical movement too is sort of very intertwined with it. In part thanks to folks like Peter Thiel who love the idea that UFOs are angels and demons, although mostly demons, it seems like. So it to the point where he's I mean, I'm assuming, but he definitely has gotten JD Vance to kind of believe that as well. Because
Do you think they really believe it though?
I don't think Vance has had a single original thought his entire life. So no. I think he just says, I think a lot of them just say what gets them money. If I'm, it's basically, it feels like it's donations by another means. Because I know that Teal likes to do that specifically. A lot of funds to, oh, I like your ideas. Let me give you money. And of course, you're kind of doing like, um, even unconsciously, there will be some ethical issues that arise with that.
I have to
Sorry.
wonder if Teal actually believes some of that stuff, or he's just putting on a show, just for the sake of, I don't
Well,
know.
what is that leaked email he had where it's like, um, you know, he's talking about like conspiracy theories because he likes them because then people don't really look in his direction. You can. I shouldn't paraphrase it, but there's a leaked email out there that makes the rounds. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's pursue that a little further. We don't have to commit to the possibilities. We don't have to assert that we think they're correct. Let's just list what the possibilities are, because there's a lot of different people do things for different things. Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, Avi Loeb got different reasons they're doing the things they're doing. Representative Luna is going to have a different reason than Chris Bledsoe, But what are the reasons it has come to significance in the Beltway to the extent that media outlets, professional journalists, professional political commentators cover it because it's a significant topic in the Beltway? Why has that come to pass? Why does Representative Luna want to conduct what to knowledgeable historians is an insult to intelligence of a hearing on MK Ultra? What's going on with that? Just spitball the possibilities for us.
I think one possibility that always crosses my mind when I look at what people are doing and kind of question their motivations is, are they trying to pressure the government to release classified information that should remain classified for national security sake? That's been a big thing that I've thought a lot about in different situations.
I think that's a good one to have on the table of possibilities. If Russia and China weren't involved in getting the UFO research community to eagerly demand further disclosure of classified records, they'd have gotten on and helped once it started. I think it's certainly a reasonable presumption. They're not sad about it, put it that way. Yeah. What so might Representative Luna, as Alison brought up earlier, be persuaded by operations from foreign adversaries, knowingly or otherwise?
I mean, also she could very well believe the narrative, too. I mean, I think some of these people genuinely believe some of these stories. I mean, I know that I listen to the same, I mean, Davis and the same people that have been kind of coaching them or giving them information. There was a point in time when I thought that they were more credible than I believe they are now. So belief could be another thing on the table.
Yeah, like I've said, back in the day, if you heard it on a radio talk show, I mean, once upon a time, everybody and their cousin didn't have a podcast. And if you just heard a CIA colonel on the radio talking about portals at Skinwalker Ranch, in and of itself, I thought that gave it more credibility. As Alison discussed a few minutes ago, if you see a former Pentagon intelligence officer on 60 Minutes talking about his job and he was a UFO chaser, you're going to drop your defenses a little as compared to if you see it in a dubious tabloid. So yeah, I mean, some of it's belief, and some of it, like a representative Burchett, for instance, perhaps he doesn't have to be targeted to get on board with it because it's something he's comfortable talking about. It's something people are putting microphones in his face. He probably never got this kind of attention all his life. And it's kind of fun and interesting, is a possibility. Yeah.
I do think with the, I mean, obviously from a person whose publication is called Getting Spooked, I think you know where I'm gonna go. But I think especially the recent developments, the 2017 article, as well as To the Stars Academy, are kind of indicative of that there was some kind of thing happening with the intelligence community. And that's like because everybody on the To the Stars board was former, current consultants, you know, like except for Tom DeLonge, he's of course in Blink 182, but the rest of them were had some sort of affiliation with the intelligence community. And I couldn't say in like a pill-shaped form like this is why they were doing it, but I think that's why we're here, whatever that reasoning was. This is sort of all, you know, I'd say aftershocks, except it kind of still feels like we're in the earthquake. The earthquake hasn't ended. We haven't even gotten to aftershocks yet. So it's kind of where I sit on it.
And it was brilliantly
stars.
played too. I'm sorry, Jack. I was just going to say that the way that they put it all together and the groundwork that they did. I mean, this is, I mean, just it was very slick organization with a lot of people and podcasters and different, underlings involved to create that moment in time and things.
Yeah.
Yes. To the Stars and the 2017 New York Times article that Tanner brought up gets another ding, 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 like 3 points there I would give out.
If this were actually around the horn, we'd all be interrupting each other. Like, be much louder.
Yes. And yeah, there are a lot of similarities too between the formation of NICAP and the formation of To the Stars, and the PR and the whole package of how they rolled it out and had statements to give out from military insiders. It is fascinating. And like you're saying, Tanner, I don't know why in either circumstance, but I find it incomprehensible that it wasn't intentional. Like I don't believe that it was organic at all. No.
There's a lot going on. And I think too, and it's important to, when you're looking at like that group of people that were involved or are involved in that, you look at like the Chris Mellons and you look at his family and you look at Leslie Kean and her family. They're all very, politically active families who come from a long line of, politicians and things. And so that makes it quite interesting as well to look at it at that angle, or to study, where people are coming from, their backgrounds.
Yeah, the Mellon family especially, or what?
Oh,
It's like
yes.
uh, not necessarily Chris, although I it, he probably shares some qualities, I have to assume, but um, pretty widespread. I think of like Richard Scaife Mellon. I think I have that name right. Richard Mellon Scaife. It's one or the other. And he was like a right wing media empire on his own, like uh, I only he did the Pittsburgh Tribune, which it was, famously one of the most vociferously anti-Clinton publications. He'd fund things looking into like the Clinton body count. Um, just, it. You're right. These people's family backgrounds need to be taken into account because even Leslie Kean, I mean, as her cousins and is he a senator?
She has some direct family
Congressman.
members that have held political office. Yeah.
One is fascinatingly the guy who I think has some medical condition, but they're not really talking about what it is, and he hasn't been seen in office in a while. Not Mitch McConnell. There's actually more than one. Thomas Kane, I think is his name.
Oh,
Tom Kane.
interesting.
Well,
Oh, interesting.
sometimes it's the things that are omitted from reporting that make me question how organic it is too. Like when that came out in 2017, they didn't blatantly misrepresent who Kane and Blumenthal were, but they omitted it to where anyone that wasn't already aware of it would have that, wow, this is 60 Minutes feeling from seeing it in the New York Times. And not only did she have a long and well documented history of credulous promotion of UFO hoaxes, she was involved in that fiasco in South America where Chile claimed there were all these UFOs videoed at an air show and that they were wanting UN funds, United Nations funds to do research and conduct a task force and have the resources they need to get to the bottom of it. And they cited more than just the air show, but that air show video alone was insultingly a matter of insects that were filmed.
But she was
And
working with Cepha, right? I mean, I think that there were government officials that she was working
and
with.
yes, the relevance being not only is she a at best gullible UFO reporter, like at best subject to falling for a hoax, but it was directly involved with politics. Yeah, she had a whole career of trying to get on board with governments, government agencies, politicians internationally, even. Yeah.
Which is interesting because so do a few of the other people that we've mentioned in this interview.
Right, right. Anything to add to this, Alison?
I think for big players like Robert Bigelow or, the Galileo Project, it's reasonable to opine that a possibility for some of this could be getting big government contracts, which involve the defense industry, which are super secret, and you won't ever know. Those won't get disclosed, right? So there could be a government funding contract type of situation. Why they're interested.
That's certainly a valid point for defense spending, protection, feasibility studies, drone research and development, all kinds of stuff. Absolutely. And it is a grant writer's job in a proposal to show a need, demonstrate a problem, show a need, provide a solution, give them a budget of how much it's going to cost them. So absolutely, you can see repeatedly in the UFO community these startups that seem to be jockeying for funding and to position themselves to be prepared. And there's nothing in itself wrong with that. I mean, if we were talking about the Department of Transportation and an area that needs roads, well, fine. It becomes more of an issue when there are people like Gary Nolan. I'm going to call him again.
Stanford immunologist Gary Nolan.
That's correct. That has presented himself as an experiencer, and this clearly has some degree of self-discovery and self-validation involved with it. That's relevant, as is if we are conducting objective research, well, then that's going to potentially damage that. And preparing the community and the press for potential grant proposals, the ethics of that all comes into play. That and I'm not going to pick on just Dr. Nolan here. I'll say a lot of self-described former intelligence assets, whether they are or not, I can't really say, but they claim they are, seed the media with fantastic stories that then hearings like Burleson and Luna participate in. The next logical step would be, well, then give this agency and this corporation and these people that are already a network that know each other and work together the funds they need to work on these projects. And that certainly deserves its place on the table of possibilities. Yes. Any other potential reasons that Washington is up in arms about unidentified aerial phenomena?
You gave me a good idea, which is to use a UFO flap to argue for like Department of Transportation funding, because nobody does that. You could fix the potholes around here instead
That's right.
of a new what are they using now? Anti-drone lasers that knock civilian aircraft out of the sky is our most recent endeavor I saw. Is pretty bad.
Yeah. I think,
Erica,
don't you think? Oh, sorry,
that's
go
kind
ahead.
of in your neck of the woods, right? Is that in New Mexico?
It was close to the border. What was it? The flight was coming out of Roswell,
Oh, right, yeah.
actually.
Oh, that's
That was so sad. That was so, yeah, very tragic.
that's crazy though, because they no, I'll go on a rant. Never mind.
Yeah, the Erica's talking about, if I'm understanding right, there was an incident where a medevac was flying out of Roswell recently, and a electronic interference experiment out of White Sands missile range shut down its navigation system, and all four on board were killed when they flew into a mountain. Also contributing to that, as reported by the outlet I read, was an understaffed control tower. So that's nice as well. And then there was an incident before that where they thought that they were directing some kind of electronic countermeasures type technology at a drone that was a children's balloon, correct? Somewhere
Yes,
along
that
the
was,
board.
yeah, wasn't that last year sometime?
Yeah. Well, were both these incidents when so there's been a couple times they've closed down El Paso
The
airport.
drone closed down El Paso. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm getting incidents mixed together. It's crazy that there's been so many, first of all.
And I still haven't decided how UFO researchers determine whether a drone is a human drone or an extraterrestrial craft, or whether Havana syndrome is a state actor or an extraterrestrial, but that's apparently above my pay grade.
My favorite thing was the drone. The drones are pretending to look like normal drones, but if you look closely, it's actually something pretending to be a drone. Yeah.
As
That's always a
Jackson
good one,
Brown
and it
said,
works.
like Russians will. Yes. Yes.
Yep. I don't know, Jack. I mean, that's a great question. Like, what would be the reasoning for all of, for this kind of push and things? And I think there's so many, as everybody's brought up, so many interesting reasons as to why that topic would be used,
Yeah, yet another one for people like Luna would be, and Vance would be, my boss is showing interest in it, so I want him to be reelected and keep my job. Like, my party is pushing this, so I'm on board with my party. I kind of get that idea from Burchett too, that critical thinking's out, Bigfoot in Tennessee is in. Let's go with it for
Well, and then,
now.
you also have the conspiracy mindset of a whole bunch of people promoting anti-vaxxing, disinformation and the Wuhan, the leak or, whatever we're having. So it's just a whole conspiracy culture mindset that we see, unfortunately, wrapped up with, something that could be and should be really taken seriously if there was something extraterrestrial, on the table. But it's kind of it's an unfortunate means to, I think, further kind of destabilize people as well, to push for, anti-science and not using critical thinking skills. The UFO gateway is a powerful one.
Yes, and now that has been a go-to for Lena. Like, in her hearing on MK Ultra, she established the existence of, and this is pretty much old hat in the UFO and conspiracy communities too, established the reality of unethical and despicable projects in human experimentation, then pivot to unsubstantiated claims and try to lump it all together as if the existence of MK Ultra means that the guy at the local pharmacy put a radio chip in you when he gave you your vaccine. And I'm painting broadly there, but that's the general idea, is attack vaccination programs in a way that lacks evidence and material substance by piggybacking on, but they did MK Ultra.
Yeah, right. And that, you know, that's so, it's so unfortunate because there are real consequences for all of these things. There are real people that have been hurt, you know, and tortured, and then to have that kind of, you know, you're interjecting these ideas that aren't grounded in reality. That does a great disservice to the people that were victimized by that program.
Yes, there are indeed real circumstances and historical relevance. In fact, part of our August celebration involves Erica and I will be speaking with Stephen Kinzer, author of Poisoner in Chief, and we're looking forward to talking with him about his research into Sidney Gottlieb and MK Ultra. So follow EFR on Blue Sky and keep an eye on the Patreon to find out more about that. But yes, Erica, it is indeed significant. And Tanner,
I can't wait to talk to.
Go. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, I'm really looking forward to that conversation. I reread Poisoner in Chief very often, and I enjoyed listening to Stephen's research about the Dulles brothers and various things that I think will be incredibly relevant to everything that we talk about. So that it's going to be great. And I do think that there are, you know, listening to portions of the testimony from those hearings, there was information that was really important to hear. And so I don't want to, but I think it's unfortunate that it kind of devolved. And then, like you're saying, Jack, pivoted to unsubstantiated claims and conspiracy theories.
Kinzer testified at that hearing, right?
Yes, he did. Yep.
You guys have to ask him about it, how it went, what his impressions of it were.
Yes, indeed. I am hoping to get his impression of how MK Ultra is being framed as of late. Yes. So give me your closing thoughts, guys. What's the takeaway?
It might, and just to my takeaway, I think is that we really need to understand that there's so many dynamics, as we have all talked about, all of us. I know all of us do that. And there's so many aspects to, like, whether somebody's getting funding. Is this used to create a cult? Is this used to provide or put platform disinformation and misinformation? There's so many ways that this topic can be framed, and we do have to very seriously look at the politics involved and the people involved and the organizations involved, and do research as to what, you know, perhaps their potential reasoning would be. It's not just simply people are looking for UFOs. There's a lot more to this, and it is in my opinion should be taken very, very seriously, especially given the time that we're living in right now. We need to understand those dynamics.
Thank you. Alison?
I just think it's important. I mean, Erica said it very well, why it's important. You have to know who and why. Don't just look at, oh, they're giving this information. Who's giving it and why? And of course, then obviously critical thinking, this if it's real, but you can't just look at it like, oh, all of a sudden they just want to be transparent for some reason. Like, there's always the politics behind it.
Yeah, if it's a congressional hearing, it's political. That's right. That's right. And Tanner.
I would say it's important to have a little note, I'm saying healthy dose of paranoia. Don't turn into a basket case. But I think if the past, I don't know, 50, 60 years have shown anything, it's that it's okay to be a little bit paranoid, but know what you're being paranoid about. Um, and happy anniversary to EFR. That's my other
Thank
closing
you.
thought.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and thank you to all who joined me, Tanner, Allison, Erica. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks for joining us at home. And indeed, we are celebrating our 4-year anniversary. You will find links in the show description. If you find this helpful and entertaining, please consider joining our financial supporters. A special GoFundMe was set up for the August anniversary. We are a verified nonprofit on GoFundMe. You can also join our EFR Patreon. And again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to the panel members. I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Jack. And thanks for being on this journey with me, all of you. I mean, this is the great part that I love about doing this, is meeting people like both of you and then creating a community of critical thinkers and people that are understanding deeper dynamics and things. It's really important. So thank you.
Thank you. See you all next time.